PseudoPod is extruded into this universe from a dimension of purest fear. It's beautiful in its own alien way, but what's to come will unsettle you. PseudoPod, episode 681, December 25th. Happy Christmas, everybody, 2019. This week's story, A Night of Many Months by C.L. Holland. Hey everyone, welcome to PseudoPod, the weekly horror podcast. I'm Alistair, your host, and we hope you're having a fantastic Christmas day. Here is our gift to you. It was first published in Everyday Fiction on the 25th of December 2 years ago, and it comes to you from C.L. Holland, a British writer of SF and fantasy who has been published in Daily Science Fiction, Nature, and most recently the anthology Pioneers and Pathfinders. She has a BA in English with creative writing and MA in English and likes to learn things for fun. When not working or writing, she can be found making jewellery or reading about history and folklore. Your narrator for this story is the one, the only, the magnificent Mr. Dave Robertson, one of the finest narrators and humans it has ever been my fortune to meet. This is an incredible piece, and it needed an incredible narrator, and it's absolutely got one. So, without further ado, get a cup of tea and a mince pie, or if you're like me, literally any other confection than a mince pie, and take a seat, because we have a story for you, and we promise you, it's true.
A Night of Many Months by C.L. Holland. Narrated by Dave Robertson. He'd wondered when he started the job why he needed a belt with so many holes. Now he knew. It fitted around him twice and felt like it needed tightening again. It took months to visit every home in one night, and he'd lived every minute, surviving on what was left for him. In some houses it was mince pies and a glass of sherry. In others, milk and cookies and a carrot for the reindeer. In most, it was nothing at all. The residents of this house had put out a slice of Christmas cake and a bowl of nuts for visitors. He cracked open a walnut and ate the crinkly, sweet flesh, then put a handful of hazelnuts in his pocket for later. More than that would abuse their hospitality, something he'd been warned against. He ate the cake with one hand and filled stockings with the other. He'd learned early to take shortcuts where he could. The cake was store-bought, crumbly and too dry, with no brandy tang to wake a mouth that was starting to feel like it was full of cotton wool. Still, he was grateful. He ate another walnut before disappearing up the chimney. At the neighbor's, the tree was huge and bushy, with the angel bowed beneath a ceiling festooned with red and gold. Every surface sparkled. At first glance it appeared they'd left nothing, but then he saw a bottle of sherry with a label around the neck. Sure enough, it was addressed to him. "Please take the whole bottle, or Grandma will drink it and ruin Christmas. Love, Johnny." "Bless you, kid," he whispered. On the roof, he tipped the sherry into the drainpipe. He'd had more than enough, and the bottle was a more valuable gift. He dug in the footwell of the sled for a card left for him earlier on this endless night, and curled it into the neck of the bottle as a makeshift funnel. Behind him, the reindeer snorted impatiently as he shoveled in handfuls of snow. No one ever thought to leave out drinking water. The reindeer had accepted a single carrot each when offered, but left the rest for him. They didn't seem to need more, but then he supposed flying reindeer had their own rules. Europe finished, they pulled the sleigh west out over the Atlantic. The advert had mentioned travel, but he thought it was touring malls. Then, at induction, they'd told him traveling east to west made the most of the varying time zones, and to trust that the reindeer knew where they were going. "You are not permitted," they said, "to bring anything with you. Only that which is left out can be taken. You are not permitted to eat the reindeer." High over the ocean, the tears froze on his cheeks. He'd known there were others before him, but no one had been willing to talk about them, only mutter about changing times. As he huddled against the cold, he looked down at the water, shining like ice in the moonlight. At this height, it would be like hitting concrete. He just had to get to the end. In South America, it was summer, and he felt the welcome heat soak into his bones. He drank sidra and ate pan de Pascua. It seemed every nation had its version of fruitcake. As he went north, it grew colder, and he nearly cried as he saw the bulk of the USA and Canada stretched out before him, each house waiting for a visit. His teeth loosened in his gums, and he had to suck the sugar cookies left for him before he could eat them. His nails peeled away from their beds. Just before they crossed into Canada, he gorged on snow until he was sick. He wondered how many before simply didn't survive the trip, and what happened then. The reindeer flew on. The snowfields of Canada were so vast, he didn't notice they'd crossed into Alaska until they came to the ocean and the reindeer banked to head towards the pole. "That's it," he croaked. "We're done." The reindeer didn't answer. He huddled in the sled's footwell to sleep and didn't care if he never woke up. The next thing he knew, it was warm. Hands pulled at him, but he struggled away and slid to the ground. "Well done, sir," a cheerful voice said. "Now you can rest, eat, sleep, and prepare for next year." Next year? I thought this was a seasonal job." "Seasonal, yes, but it is a permanent position." The elves pulled him to his feet and shuffled him towards the snow-covered log cabin he'd stayed in before, with smoke coming out of the chimney and the roof edged with fairy lights. As they ushered him in, he wondered why he hadn't noticed before. There were candy cane bars at the windows.
What a delightful nightmare. The sort of elegantly turned knife to the ribs you expect to be delivered by Rod Serling, cigarette in one hand, metaphor in the other. Or perhaps, more fittingly these days, Jordan Peele, all immaculate suit, locked eye contact, and careful distance. After all, the narrator's job is to present, never participate. I could joke here about seasonal jobs. I could point out the 0-hour contract that lies at the heart of Big Elf. I could even bemoan our hero's fate, trapped for as long as he can survive inside an eternal long now, living for the moment so we can live for a moment of joy, whether our own or witnessed, on an all too fleeting, for us, all too long for him, Christmas morning. It's not often you get to meet an honest-to-goodness hero in horror fiction, but I rather feel we just did. Best of luck, sir. Remember to bend at the knees when you roll out of the chimneys, just as we should remember that no myth was ever the godlike creature it depicts. Beneath them all are stories, realities, truths, and people. The myth is vital, don't get me wrong. The myth is the armour we buckle on to deal with the day, but the myth is just that. Armour. A crafted item, one we should put down whenever we must, and, based on this story, be thankful that we get to put it down at all. Ho ho ho, sir. Merry Christmas. By the way, for similar if distinctly less toothy takes on Santa, as a working stiff, I can heartily recommend Rise of the Guardians. Santa there is very much Captain America to an Avengers of children's heroes. He's also massive, Russian, has naughty and nice tattooed on his forearms, and is a good time. It's a fun movie, definitely worth checking out. In the meantime, from all of us in the EAPN family, to all of you, our listeners, have a wonderful festive season. You are extraordinary people and you make our lives better because, through your donations, you allow our lives to feature this. Thank you for listening. No big sales pitch this week, no big push. You know to go to PseudoPod.org, you know where the Patreon is, you know we need help. and we know that those of you who can will do the right thing. So thank you. As for me, I'll leave you with the reminder that this week's story, and next week's, and the ones that follow, will be a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. And the news that our final 2019 story will be by Jack Westlake, produced by the magnificent Marty Perrett, and read by Pippa Alice Stevens. Have an incredible Christmas, and we'll see you back here for that next week. We leave you with this quote from Rise of the Guardians. "We are too busy bringing joy to children. We do not have time for children."
It's a pseudopod. It's a big foot.
It's all about podcasts these days.